What up, YouTube? We are back with another one. Before we get started, I just want y'all to, if you're already subscribed to the video, make sure you hit the bell and you have all notifications. Sometimes the algorithm's been a little funny. So make sure you got all notifications so you can get it right away. I appreciate y'all. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. But anyways, we are going to MGM where they have a special promotion. It is right here. It is if you play for 4 hours between hours of 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., you get a free $100. It is cash. It is not a food. It is not for any type of other thing besides a black chip in your pocket. So with all that being said, at the end of the video, I will let y'all know if it is worth it. The first hand is crazy. Let's get right to it. First hand to start the session, we play so abysmally. I'm ashamed to show you, but I must tell the truth. We have pocket kings as an under the gun raise to 20, and on the button, we decide to only call, trying to trap with this aggressive opponent. Always should be putting a 3-bet no matter what, but we decided to call here, trying to trap. Hopefully it doesn't hurt us, and we are off to the flop, which is Queen Jack 7 with 2 diamonds, 1 heart. I have an overpair, so that's always great, and now he bets out for $20, and I decided that there's nothing left to do here but just call. I want to see what he does on the turn. We're off to the 4 heart turns. Now you got 2 diamonds and 2 hearts, and now he decides to put in a check, and I have 3 options. I could check, I could bet big, or I could bet small. Being is that I think he's aggressive, I think if I bet big, that'll just get him to fold out a lot of his hands. So I decided to go tricky, and I bet 30, trying to induce him to raise. And now he does raise for 100. And at this point, this is what I wanted him to do. And being is that I only have another 125 on top, and there's 2 draws on the board, I decided to just rip it all in. And he actually snap calls, so I'm thinking he has a set of queens or jacks or something like that. However, no, he has pocket aces. So all of the theatrics was for nothing. We could have got it all in a different way. But definitely I'm not worried about the results of the situation. My process of how I played the hand I think was very bad. You can let me know what you think in the comments. How bad did I play it? 1 through 10, 10 being the worst. How bad did I play it? Let me know. So we only have $100 in chips at the moment. We're about to buy back in for more, but however, this hand we only have 100. So we have King Jack and we raise it up to just 10 on the button, and the small blind and big blind decides to call. So we are going 3 ways to the flop, which is King 7-5 with 2 spades. Being as that there's 30 in the pot, I decided to bet out for $20 because of the flush draw out there. We have top pair. Just trying to really reduce the SPR. If somebody calls the 20, the pot will then be at 70. So then I will have pretty much just a pot size shove. And we get our wish when the small blind decides to call. We are off to the turn, which is a deuce. And I go all in for 70 into a pot that has 70. So that's a perfect riverside jam. And he tanks, and then eventually he decides to put in the call. The river is a board pairing 7, and we show King Jack, but unfortunately we do not win. However, we do not lose. We chop because he has King Jack as well. So chop it up. We probably are close to breaking even after the break because one person did call the pre-flop 10. But nonetheless, we are about to buy back in for $200 more. So we are now into the game for 600 total. And let's try to make some of our money back. So this was a quick but fun hand. We're looking down at 9, 10 of spades in the big blind. We raise it up to $20 over a few limps, and the cutoff is the only caller. And we are off to the flop, which is Queen 8 deuce with 1 spade. So we have a backdoor flush draw along with a gut shot to a straight draw. So I actually really like these kind of hands, and I decided to bet 20 into 50. I actually do want our opponent to call because I just know that I'm going to be able to win this pot whenever I want. Whether I make my hand or I don't, I'll deviate my strategy, but I know for sure that we will win. However, after our opponent tanks for a while, he folds. So still nice to take down a pot. I'll take it. All right, another hand where we have some spades. This time these are larger ones. We have King 10 of spades on the button, and we decide to raise it up to $20. And when we raise it up to $20, we get 2 calls, and we are going to the flop, which is King 9 deuce with 1 spade. So we got top pair. Not the best kicker, but top pair will usually be good. And so I decide to put out a bet of $20 into the pot of 70, and only the small blind decides to call. And we are off to the turn, which is the ace of diamonds. And Sometimes our opponent might float with their ace highs, but I think sometimes they'll lead here. So I just decide to bet again, thinking that maybe my king should still be the best hand. But I bet out for $55, get raised to 130, and at that point, instantly regretting betting. I think that's a good spot for me to check for pot control, see what my opponent wants to do on the river. When I bet here, a lot of times I just put myself in a bad situation. So this was the example of that. We got to get out of the way and move on to the next hand. So I guess I'm a little tilted by losing that last hand. So there's a raise to $10. I'm in the big blind. I call a $10 raise with 8-4 suited. Obviously a bad situation, but we're going through ways to a flop, which is King 6-6 with two diamonds, and the small blind decides to lead out for $10. I decide to call, and the preflop raiser also decides to call. The turn is, I guess, as good as it can get for me. It's a jack of diamonds. We now make the flush, although there's full houses available, bigger flushes. However, when it checks to me, I'm going to still bet my flush until somebody tells me that they might have something stronger. I put out a bet of 30, and they both decide to fold. So I guess I'm deciding that if I can't win with good hands, it's time to play with bad hands. Obviously not a good strategy, but we've all been there. I'm no different. So this hand just quickly demonstrates how you gotta sometimes deviate from your course of action. So we have King Queen off. We raise to $20 from the hijack. We get two callers. We are in position to both of them. And the flop is ace 3-4. Obviously, this is going to benefit our range more. However, in low stakes, many players are going to limp call with all of their ace X. So it still is possible they could have aces up here. And when there's one person who decides to lead for 20, I'm going to raise this up, trying to put max pressure on those weak one pair aces. But the OMC to my right also decides to call. So when both of them call, that means either or both of them have an ace. So I just decided to get out of the way, and I stopped recording, but the pot ended up getting really big, and the OMC ended up putting out a monster bet on the river for like $200, and he showed that he flopped a set. So it's a good thing I deviated from that plan, and we are moving on to the next one. Look, we all know that feeling when you peel your cards back and you see those suited connectors and you're thinking like, wow, I could flop trips, I could get a straight, I could get a flush. So of course, when I have 3-4 suited, we're in latest position, so we raise it up to 15. 4-3 suited should really still be a fold in this situation, but hey, I'm here to win some money, and that's what it is. So we have the cutoff calls, and we are going to go heads up to a flop, which is Queen 6-5. So we actually flop open ended. Any seven or deuce will give us a straight. There is one heart on the board for backdoor equity as well. And so I'm just going to go half pot here. I'm just going to go $15. And that's the price he thinks is good enough to continue. So he calls. Turn is an ace. Now, of course, it's going to hit my range here. So I'm actually going to bet small here because I want him to call. And depending on what card we see on the river, it will depending on my bet size. So I just go $35, which is pretty much the same percentage of the pot that I bet last time. But that was enough to get him to fold. So obviously, I'm not going to be mad to win a pot with 4 high, and we are moving on. Now we are peeling another form of hearts this time, but now we have Broadway hearts, Queen 10 suited. We're in middle position. I raised to $20 over the straddle, and only the straddle decides to call. We are off to a beautiful flop of King 9-6 with two hearts. So we have a gut shot to a straight along with a flush draw. So monster draw here. We put out a bet of $20, and our opponent decides to call. And unfortunately, we see the most brickest of all bricks on the turn. It is the deuce of spades. But at this juncture, he didn't think very long before he called. So I'm going to put out a bet of $45, planning on blasting the river if he calls one more time. However, he thinks about it for just a few moments and lets it go. So once again, always good to win a pot when you don't even have a pair. I will take it. So we are still down because of the aces versus kings hand. However, we are now looking down at pocket sevens, the hockey sticks, and we call a $15 raise, and we go three ways to a flop, which is pretty darn good. It is 9-7-5 with two clubs. So we do flop middle set. Such a wonderful feeling. And The pre-flop raiser decides to bet out for $20, and on this wet of a board, I decide to raise it up, and because it's so wet and connected, and the pre-flop raiser is pretty shallow, I go $75, just trying to commit anybody who wants to continue, and the other opponent gets out of the way, and the raiser decides to shake his head for a second, and I guess he probably has an overpair, so he just goes all in. So we are going off to a run out. The run out was an 8, which is obviously not a great card. However, the river is a 9, giving us a full house. Let's go. We are still not completely even. However, when we get the $100 bonus for playing for 4 hours, that'll put us right at about even. So we got to keep on continuing on this path, but feels amazing to flop a set, hold, and it always feels good to make a full house. So let's go, let's get even, and then let's get up. So it's actually amusing. The last few vlogs, my last hand has been pocket jacks. This vlog is no different. We got pocket jacks. We raise it up to $20 over a few limps, and we get 2 callers. We are in position to the 2 callers, so we have the button for all intents and purposes. We are off to a flop where, which is what you always want to see. We have an overpair with pocket jacks. However, it is a monotone, semi-connected board. The board is 8, 6, 10 with all diamonds. So 7-9 would be a straight, just in case you're wondering. And funny enough, the first player checks, and one player decides to lead into me for $40. Now, when you run into small donk bets, they're normally very weak. However, when you start running into donk bets that are going to be 60% of pot or better, they normally start to be a little bit stronger. And on this one, I just got a really bad vibe. I looked at my hand. I don't have a diamond either. So although you might be able to say this is pretty nitty, I do decide to just fold. And when I fold, the first player to act decides to call the 40, so they go heads up to a turn. Just in case you're wondering, the turn is an absolute brick. It is a 4 of spades. And now the person who checked first last time now decides to just lead donk shove for like $250. So that's like mega strong. And the opponent that donked into us tanks for about roughly 20 seconds, but then decides to fold. So now I am 1000% sure that I was smoked on the flop, and I'm glad that I recognized it. If our opponent would have donked for like 20, I would have raised to like $80 just to charge all of the draws and stuff, and I would have got into trouble. So that's why when you're up against players that aren't very good, you got to look at their sizing tells, and they will tell you exactly what they have. It's up to us and it's up to you to just listen to them, because poker players, despite what you think, are very honest. Just maybe not so much with their words, but they're way more honest with their bets. So that's the last hand. Let's get to the outro. There's a few things I want to discuss. All right, this is the outro. Let's get over the results just to start off. So we were into the game for $600. We were out for $375. However, we did get the $100 promo. So that does make us have a total of $475, meaning that we lost $125. So another loss for the vlog. The day before, I did come in and I played only for about 20 minutes and won $220. So still a little bit of profit overall, but nonetheless, the promotion, we're going to go over what it is right now. So I did the math for you guys. On average, they say you will play between 20 to 30 hands per hour. So if you're doing on the lower end, that's going to be 3 orbits per hour, right? And that's going to translate to $12 that you're going to spend on the blinds. $3 plus 1 is how much you spend on every orbit. You do 3 orbits, that is going to be $12 per hour times 4 hours. That's $48 is how much that will cost you. However, at MGM, I do feel like the dealers are a little bit better at moving the game along. So I'm going to say you'll play closer to 32 hands per hour. We're just going to make it simple. That is 4 orbits per hour, $4 per orbit. That is going to put you at 16 an hour times 4 hours. That's going to put you at $64 that you will spend if you just fold every hand you get into. So if you want to sit down, you would be expecting to make $36 to $52 at the end of 4 hours if you folded everything and made no moves. Obviously, that's not how poker goes, and that's not why I was there. But if you do the math on how much you would make per hour sitting there, if you did that, it would be between $9 to $13 an hour if you sat there as a job, played no hands, and sat there and just knitted it up for the Benjamin. So was it worth it for me? Obviously, I lost even with the Benjamin, but that is it. I appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you got the notification on all notifications. For everyone watching, I appreciate y'all. Holla.